My name is Ray Mercer, a retired court reporter. For decades, I typed other people's truths, and once, I stayed quiet. Now my own daughter sits across from me in a Savannah courtroom, trying to take my home with forged papers and a friendly judge. If you've ever chosen silence over courage, stay. The page in my jacket could end a judge and cost me my family. Wait and see what happened next, and don't forget to subscribe.
Fluorescent lights hummed overhead like gnats at a summer barbecue. Savannah's Chatham County Courthouse smelled like varnish and old arguments. My back ached from the wooden bench. Across the aisle, my daughter, Sienna, inspected her nails. Perfect powder pink, the kind that says, "I spend money on things you don't." Her husband, Trent, sat beside her with a grin that never touched his eyes. Their attorney, a silver-suited celebrity shark named Victor Sloan, checked his watch for the third time in as many minutes. He didn't look at me. People like him don't look at men like me until we're in their way. My phone buzzed in my palm. A text from my other daughter, Lena, all the way in Seattle. "Dad, please, don't let them steamroll you. Get a real lawyer. Call me." I didn't answer. Sometimes the simplest text is the one you can't afford to read. "Mercer versus Reed," the bailiff called, and my stomach did a slow old man flip. "That's me, Ray Mercer, court reporter for almost 4 decades. Retired now, widower, father of 2, and apparently, if you asked Sienna, a deadbeat who owed her 200 grand I'd never borrowed." Trent stood first, straightening his French cuffs like he'd been born in a boardroom. He passed close enough that his cologne hit like a wall. He wanted me to smell the victory on him. "Ready to lose your home, old man?" he murmured. My fingers touched the inside of my jacket and found the thing I'd been keeping there for a week. Thin, yellowed, dangerous. I smiled. Just the corners, enough for Trent to tilt his head and say, "What's funny?" "Nothing," I said. "Just remembering 1997. A week earlier, my doorbell rang at 7:15 p.m. I was washing a single dinner plate, the quiet kind of evening you grow into after your wife passes and the house forgets how to echo. Through the window, I saw Sienna's Tesla in my driveway. Behind it, Trent's leased Range Rover. A third car, a charcoal Mercedes. Briefcases, polished shoes, expressions practiced in elevators. "Dad," Sienna said when I opened the door. She hadn't hugged me in months. "We need to talk." Victor Sloan introduced himself with a handshake that felt like a bill. Trent pulled out a chair without asking, and the three of them turned my kitchen table into a courtroom. Papers spread, check marks, tabs. "You owe Sienna $200,000, Trent said, like he was reading the weather. "Informal loans, promissory notes, over 5 years. Victor slid the stack in front of me. Thick paper, expensive. "We have documentation." I held each page like a fragile bird. My signature was on them, or close enough. Dates, amounts, warm legalese telling me who I was. "These signatures aren't mine," I said. "They've been verified," Victor replied, bored. "By whom doesn't matter." "Dad," Sienna whispered, rehearsed sympathy clinging to her voice. "Judge Whitaker is an old friend. He'll be fair. You should settle. Don't spend money you don't have." I made coffee. Real coffee. Stovetop percolator, the way Evelyn used to like it. That smell has a way of telling you the truth. I drank mine black. They didn't touch theirs. "Sign the deed," Trent said finally. "Your house covers the debt. We're being generous." "Generous," I repeated. I looked at my daughter. Not the stranger in designer clothes, but the little girl with grass stains on her elbows who used to fall asleep in the back seat after softball practice. "No, I'm not signing anything." They stood. Chairs scraped. "Then we'll see you in court," Victor said. "And Ray, get a lawyer. Or don't," he added softly. "Either way, this'll be quick." Their cars disappeared down Habersham Street. I stood at the sink and counted to 100. A habit my wife used to tease me about. Then I went down to the basement. The concrete smelled like old seasons. Metal filing cabinets lined the walls the way years line a face. 40 years of transcripts. People trust digital until it vanishes. Paper stays. Cabinet 8, Drawer 2, June 12, 1997. State of Georgia v. Jonah Beckett. The transcript was yellowed and perfect. My notes in the margins like breadcrumbs are left for someone kinder. Back then, Assistant District Attorney Alan Whitaker had been ambitious and smooth, promising Savannah voters he'd make the city safer. The evidence? A handgun found Thursday in a suspect's attic. Only my notes showed the evidence tag logged on Monday, 3 days early. Someone had touched that gun in the dark. I had been young, broke, afraid. I said nothing. Jonah Beckett went away for 12 years. Whitaker became Judge Whitaker. I sat on the cold floor with my knees popping and realized I'd been keeping a match in a dry house for 3 decades. Trent thought he'd picked a compliant judge. He picked a ghost, and I was done being quiet. If this opening hit a nerve, don't just watch in silence. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is right now so I know who's still with me. Share this revenge story if you believe truth doesn't retire.
They brought forged papers. I brought history with edges sharp enough to cut a bench in half. You ever hold something so old it feels alive? I called 3 people that night. First, Ben Duvall, an old friend and another lifer in the trenches of court reporting. Ben's the guy who kept bowling league nights on index cards and remembered which judge added syllables to overruled when he'd had too much coffee. "Ray?" he answered, half laugh, half worry, like he'd been expecting this call since 2002. "Tell me it's not Sienna." "It's Sienna," I said, "and Trent and Victor Sloan with glossy paper and lies that smell like cologne." He swore softly. "Come to McKay's on Bay Street, noon tomorrow. Bring whatever you're thinking about from 97. I stared at the transcript on my workbench, a fossil with a heartbeat. It still had the smear from Jonah's mother's tears when she touched it in the gallery that day. "I'll be there." Second call, Tess Monroe, private investigator. She was 29, all freckles and steady plans. I'd helped her kid brother beat a chain of custody nightmare in 19. She owed me a favor. "I need quiet work. Cash. You in?" "That depends. Is it going to make someone in a robe sweat?" "Possibly." "I'm in." Third call, Lena, my West Coast girl. Practical, stubborn, and convinced Seattle's rain cures everything. "Dad," she said, no hello, "I'll wire you money. Get a real lawyer." "I've got a plan." "You always say that after something terrible happens." "You trust me?" "Always," she said, "but that doesn't mean I'm not terrified." The next day, McKay's was varnished in the same green light it had in 1985. The regulars were still welded to the same stools. Ben sat in a back booth with his reading glasses already out and a beer sweating on a napkin. He looked at the transcript like it was an animal that could bite. "You kept this," he said, low. "I kept everything," I said. "That was my job." He flipped pages carefully, touching only the edges. "Ray, this timeline, Monday log, Thursday discovery, that's not a mistake, that's a felony."
I know. That kid did 12 years. I know. Ben's face was every decade of friendship. So why now? Because my daughter married a man who thinks he can steal my life with a printer and a golf buddy. Ben's eyes softened. And because you've been carrying this since 97. Yes. Tess slid into the booth like smoke. Worn denim, no nonsense. "You really do have a time machine," she said, tapping the transcript. She set down her phone and showed us a photo. Trent and Judge Whitaker in chambers yesterday afternoon. Smiles like old friends. A folder exchanged. Timestamp 2:18 p.m. I felt a calm I didn't trust. "So it's not just friendship," I said. "It's choreography." Tess nodded. "Also, Trent's got a sealed 2019 case out of Chatham County, white-collar fraud that never saw daylight. Guess who signed the sealing order?" "Whitaker," Ben and I said together. "You got it." She sipped water. I'll pull what I can. Those seals aren't locks so much as suggestions, depending on who you know. I remembered Whitaker in '97. How he'd smiled too easily whenever the cameras were around. What's the endgame? I asked. Why risk everything to help a man like Trent? Tess shrugged. Because Trent has something worse, or because some debts never get paid. Either way, if the judge is compromised to your civil case is a chessboard with a missing ting. Then we change the board, I said. I'm not trying to beat Sienna in court. I'm trying to end Trent's leverage. Ben rubbed his jaw. How? I'm going to hire the worst lawyer I can afford. I'm going to let Whitaker feel safe, safe enough to make a mistake. And when he's ready to sign my house into Trent's hands, I'm going to light 1997 on fire. Ben stared at me, then nodded, slow. Like a man who just realized the person across from him isn't drowning, he's holding his breath on purpose. Tess leaned in. Then move fast, she said, because if Trent smells smoke, he'll call the fire department. I touched the transcript. It felt warmer than paper had any right to. He won't see it coming. I turned my basement into a battlefield. Red string, old sins, and a stranger's smile pinned to cork like a butterfly. If I was going to lose, I'd choose the timing. 2 days. That's how long it took to turn my basement into something between a detective show and a guilty conscience. Corkboard leaned against cinder block. Across the top, in blue marker, timeline. 1997, Beckett. 2007, Whitaker on the bench. 2019, Trent's sealed case. 2022, fundraiser photos with Sienna accidentally meeting Whitaker. 2024, now. I printed the photo Tess sent, Trent in Whitaker's chambers, pinned it next to a printout of Trent's LinkedIn headshot, that permanent smirk like his face got stuck on smug. I ran string from photo to photo, then stepped back. My life looked like a conspiracy theory, but the difference with real conspiracies is they come with receipts. I paused by a picture of Evelyn, my wife, at Tybee after a rain. Her smile doing the thing that made me believe streetlights were just candles someone left burning a little too long. She'd been gone 3 years. Grief never leaves. It just sits down in new chairs. Before the corkboard, I made stops. First, a cramped office over a pawn shop. Curtis Bell, attorney at law, sat behind a desk that had given up. His tie was wrong, his diploma hung crooked. Yelp gave him 2 stars, which seemed generous. I understand I don't have much money, I said. He nodded slowly. I also understand you're up against Victor Sloan, who once dismantled a wrongful death suit while drinking peppermint tea. I need a lawyer who won't get in my way. Curtis blinked. I can do that, he said, with a kind of humble courage I didn't expect. Next, a notary named Hattie Ross, who read the 1997 transcript like it was a confession. She notarized the copy, stamped it with her old-fashioned seal. What you do with this isn't my business, but if this is what it looks like, it'll turn this city inside out. I said maybe it needs turning. At sunrise, I drove to a Denny's off Abercorn. Booth by the window. Coffee that tasted like night shift stories. A man sat across from me with a face the world had used too hard. Michael Rios. 45 on paper, 58 in the eyes. He'd done 12 years for a murder that unraveled on appeal. DNA freed him eventually. The city didn't send balloons. You recorded my life going away, he said quietly, looking down at the transcript like it might bite. And you knew. I suspected, I said. I was 29. Sienna was a toddler. Rent was screaming at me. I told myself I could be wrong, that I'd ruin my career for nothing. He let that sit there. And now? I need you to help me put the truth on camera. He read my margin notes, took his time. His hands shook once and then stilled. It took me 3 years to stop waking up at 3 a.m. thinking I was still in a cell, he said. If this hurts the man who put me there, and the man who used it to hurt you, I'll be there. I slid the transcript back into my bag. Thank you.
On the way to my car, my phone buzzed. Tess. Another photo. Another gut punch. Fundraiser, 2022. Trent standing 2 steps behind Sienna while she shook Whitaker's hand. Trent's eyes not on the handshake, but on the judge. Target acquired. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. "Mr. Mercer," a voice said, smoothed by decades of authority. "This is Judge Whitaker." I stopped on the sidewalk. The live oaks that lined the street seemed to lean in. "Your daughter's case is on my docket," he said. "It was random assignment. I'm calling off the record. If I were you, I'd settle." "Is that a threat?" I asked. "A suggestion," he said, but the sentence wobbled. "Save yourself some pain." He hung up. I stood in the morning light listening to a distant freight train. Judges don't call parties. Not ever. Ben would say the quiet part had learned how to speak. I texted Tess. "He just called me, off the record, told me to settle." Her reply came quick. "That's not a suggestion, that's fear." Back home, I pinned a new card to the corkboard. Today, Whitaker called. In red ink, I wrote what Lena would say if she saw all this. Then, I wrote what Evelyn would tell me. Don't blink. If you've ever wished you could rewind a bad choice, don't sit this one out. Comment your city and the time you're watching. For the algorithm, sure, but more for me. Share this USA drama if you believe karma stories eventually find daylight. People think winning is loud. Sometimes it's the quiet you choose right before the storm. I hired a lawyer to lose me my house because losing wasn't my endgame. Monday, Courtroom 3, 9 a.m. I wore the suit I buried Evelyn in, my good suit, the one that still carried her perfume if I was tired enough to imagine. I slipped the notarized transcript into the inside pocket. It sat there like a dare. Curtis Bell arrived to the folder so thin it could have been a placemat. "Mr. Mercer," he whispered, Just follow my lead." "I plan to," I said, and that was the truth. Whitaker entered with the same walk I remembered from his prosecutor days, a careful balance of humility and authority he learned in a mirror. "All rise." We did. He saw me, he saw Trent, he saw Sienna, and, just for a heartbeat, he looked like a man who didn't trust the ground under his own feet. Victor Sloan moved like water. "Your Honor, this is straightforward. Defendant borrowed $200,000 over 5 years, documented by promissory notes, signed by Mr. Mercer, verified by a handwriting expert, repaid by nothing." He clicked the remote and the screens filled with my alleged signature repeating itself like a bad chorus. "Mr. Bell?" Whitaker said. Curtis stood and immediately dropped his pen. It clattered. He fumbled. People smirked. Trent leaned back like he might invent a new yoga position named smug. "My client," Curtis started, voice shaking, "contends the signatures are not authentic and that no debt was owed." Whitaker peered over his glasses. "Do you have an expert?" "No, Your Honor." "Do you have anything at all?" Curtis's mouth opened and closed. "Not at this time." Whitaker's gavel made a lazy sound. "Then sit down, Mr. Bell." Sienna took the stand. She spoke with the brittle calm of someone trying not to cry on television. Dad's pension wasn't enough. There were repairs, the water heater, the roof. He said he'd pay me back. He signed every time. Victor guided her like a choreographer. "And did he repay you?" "No," she whispered. "He told me I owed him for raising me, for my college, that I was ungrateful for asking. He got angry." Every sentence was a pebble thrown. Each one hit a window I'd already boarded up. I kept my face neutral and watched Trent's knee bounce under the table. At lunch, I stood in the hallway by the vending machines pretending to study a bag of pretzels. Sienna approached, Trent shadowing her like a storm. "Dad," she said, "please, sign the quitclaim. You can move into an apartment. We'll help." Her eyes begged me to be the version of me that made her school lunches and killed spiders, not the guy who was about to make her life complicated.
For you? I asked. Or for him? Trent's smile sharpened. For everyone. I let my fingers touch my inside pocket, and just that second, Trent's eyes tracked the motion. He's not dumb. He's careful. I dropped my hand to my side. "What are you holding?" he asked. "History," I said. Back inside, Whitaker did something unusual. "Before we reconvene," he said, "empty your pockets, no recording devices." It wasn't a rule he ever enforced during civil proceedings. Today, it mattered. I set my keys, my wallet, and my cheap flip phone on the table. The transcript stayed where it was, technically not in a pocket. If Trent noticed, he didn't show it. If Whitaker suspected, he swallowed it. We adjourned at 4, with Victor smiling for cameras that hadn't arrived yet, and Curtis whispering, "I'm sorry, Mr. Mercer, I can ask for a continuance." "No," I said, "no continuances." As we were leaving, Whitaker called my name. "Mr. Mercer, a moment." We stood alone at the bench, the courtroom a cathedral missing worshippers. "You seem very calm," he said. "Most men would be upset." "Maybe I'm not most men," I replied. "Maybe I've been in this room long enough to know how performances end." He lowered his voice. "You were a good reporter." "I still am," I said. "I still record." He blinked. Twice. Then, "Get out," he whispered. Outside, my phone buzzed. Tess again. "Got the 2019 file. You're going to want to sit down." I didn't sit. I walked toward the square, toward live oaks and tourists and a history that would chew you up if you didn't spit it out first. Tomorrow would be the day. If you've ever watched someone you love tell a courtroom version of you that isn't true, say something. Comment your city and time. Let me know you're here. Share this emotional storytelling if you believe justice should feel like justice. I stood to lose my home, and instead, I lit a fuse I'd hidden for almost 3 decades. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that changes rooms. "Closing arguments," Whitaker said, and the words echoed. Victor rose. Curtis sat like he wished the chair would swallow him. The courtroom smelled like furniture polish and eyes on the back of your neck. "Your Honor," Victor said, voice smooth, "this case is simple. The defendant took money. He signed. He refused to repay. We ask for immediate judgment." Curtis stood and tried. He really did. God bless him. "Your Honor, these signatures, my client—" "Look, Mr. Mercer." Whitaker waved him down. "I've read your brief." He lifted a paper that looked suspiciously like a judgment already written. "Having reviewed—" I stood. "Mr. Mercer," Whitaker said sharply, "sit down. One question for the plaintiff. This is highly irregular." "One question," I repeated. "Then you can take my house." He hesitated. I watched the math run across his face. Yes, he could crush me for contempt, but he was gambling on a public who still liked him. "One question," he said. Sienna took the stand again, confusion flickering across her face. She still believed this was about money. It wasn't. It was about gravity. "Sienna," I said softly, so she'd hear me as her father, not a defendant. "Do you really think Judge Whitaker is helping you because he's your friend?" Victor shot up. "Objection." "Overruled," Whitaker said too fast, then caught himself. "Sustained. Rephrase." "Do you know why he's helping you?" I asked. She looked at Trent. He nodded. She looked back at me. "Because he cares about fairness." "Or," I said, "because your husband is blackmailing him." The room changed temperature. The gallery erupted. Trent lurched to his feet. "That's defamation," he shouted, and for the first time all day, his face wasn't smooth. It was panic wearing a suit. "He's a bitter old man. He'll say anything." I reached into my jacket and pulled out the copy that felt like a loaded question. Yellowed pages, official header, my shorthand in the margins like scars. State v. Jonah Beckett, June 12, 1997. I was the court reporter. I recorded everything, including the part where a gun supposedly found Thursday was logged on Monday, 3 days before anyone suddenly discovered it in an attic. Whitaker went pale, the color draining so fast it scared me. His hand found the edge of the bench. Someone held that gun and added fingerprints. Someone put a young man away, and that someone now wears a robe. Victor started to object, a symphony of legal words. He didn't get far. A man stood in the back row, Michael Rios. He walked to the aisle one slow step at a time. "My name is Michael Rios," he said, voice steady. "I did 12 years because of that case. 12. I missed my father's funeral, my niece's birth. The world changed twice while I was asleep under lights that never turned off." Whitaker sank into his chair like the air in the room had been stolen. The bailiff started toward me. "Do you have proof?" Trent yelled. "You have notes. You have hearsay." "I have notarized copies," I said. "I have phone records Tess will hand the DA showing you and the judge texting like it was high school gossip. I have a sealed 2019 file that explains why you always felt so safe." Sienna looked at Trent, then at me, then at the old paper in my hand. She whispered, "Dad, is this true?" "It's true," I said, "and I'm sorry you learned it like this." Whitaker's gavel tapped weakly. "Recess," he said. "Now, clear the courtroom." "Are you recessing?" I asked, "or running?" "Mr. Mercer," he snapped, but his voice broke on my mane. The bailiff's hand landed gently on my arm. I didn't resist. As we passed the gallery, Trent grabbed for the transcript and found himself blocked by Curtis Bell, whose tie was still wrong and whose spine was suddenly straight. "Don't even think about it," Curtis said. Out in the hall, my phone buzzed. "Tess, at your house in Atlanta. Brooke Allen says hello." "Who's Brooke?" I asked out loud. Tess texted back, "His other wife." And just like that, the game changed again. If this twist made your chest drop, don't ghost this story. Comment your city and the timestamp. You're part of this audience now. Share this love and betrayal saga if you believe truth belongs in daylight. The judge folded. The liar unraveled, and my daughter's world cracked in a single sentence. "Who is Brooke Allen, Trent?" The hallway buzzed like a hornet's nest. Reporters weren't here yet, but Savannah talks in its sleep. Trent stood against the wall, color gone, sweat bleeding through his shirt. "Who is Brooke Allen?" Sienna asked again. No tremble this time, just the steady tone people use when they're done being lied to. He opened his mouth and the lies came pre-packaged. "It's not like she's a business partner. It's complicated." "Are you married to her?" she asked, showing him her phone screen with a photo Tess had texted me. A backyard ceremony from 2017 in Atlanta, his arm around a woman I'd never met, a ring glinting in the Georgia sun. 2 kids in matching shoes stood in front, grinning at a man I thought I knew. "It's not a real—" "Is she your wife?" Sienna demanded. Trent sagged like a costume that stopped fitting. "Yes," he said finally. "But look, it was for taxes, for credits. It's not—" Curtis actually laughed. "That's a new one." The door to Whitaker's chambers opened. His secretary looked like a person who just realized the ceiling is mostly decorative. "The judge requests all parties." We filed in. Wood-paneled books, law reviews nobody reads lined up like trophies. A flag drooped in the corner. Whitaker sat behind his desk with his robe still on and his hands shaking. He spoke before anyone else could. "I'll resign within 30 days, he said. "I'll refer Mr. Rios to the GBI. I'll dismiss this case with prejudice. What else do you want?" I felt an anger I hadn't tasted in years, a hot thing I thought I'd left in the 90s. "Justice," I said. He laughed, short and ugly. "I don't know what that is anymore." Tess emailed me a PDF, and I slid printed phone records onto his desk, texts and calls between him and Trent for 6 months. "Let's pretend it means accountability," I said. "You texted him, Judge. Do this or the Beckett case goes public." That's Trent. Your reply, "What do you want?" You don't get to pretend anymore. Victor took one look and started moving his chair away from Trent like distance could save him from headlines. "Mr. Reed," he said tightly, "I'm withdrawing as counsel." "You can't." "I just did," he said, and walked out, leaving a trail of expensive cologne and legal ethics suddenly found. Sienna picked up a page and read aloud. "Make sure the old man loses everything." Her voice cracked. "You wrote that about my father." Trent reached for her. "Baby?" She flinched and put the table between them. "Don't call me that." He lunged for the transcript and met a bailiff's chest. "Sir, no."
Whitaker signed the dismissal order, the pen wobbling in his grip. He typed his resignation letter like it was a confession and printed it on heavy paper that made the sound of finality when he placed it on the desk. "You're going to cooperate," I said, "with everything, or this transcript hits every newspaper in Georgia by sunrise." "You're blackmailing me," Whitaker murmured. "No," I said, "I'm giving you a choice, something you never gave Jonah, or Michael, or the men who didn't have a father with a basement full of ghosts." We left. In the parking lot, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Mercer?" A woman's voice. "This is Brooke Allen." I stopped beside my Camry. "Yes, ma'am." "I saw everything online. I didn't know about your daughter," she said. "I knew he was lying to me. I didn't realize how much. He took out a second mortgage on our house. He moved money. He keeps a safe deposit box at a credit union on Bull Street. When he's cornered, he isn't just cruel. He's dangerous. Please, watch your back." I thanked her. Then I saw Trent 3 rows over, sitting in his SUV, eyes on me, not blinking. He looked like a man in a car underwater. 3 days ticked by hard and slow. Whitaker's resignation leaked to the paper. The Chronicle ran a banner so large it felt like a headline from the 1950s. Trent disappeared. Sienna went silent, which scared me more than her laughter ever had. At 2 a.m., my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. Sienna stood on my porch in a hoodie, makeup gone, hair pulled back hard. She looked like someone who'd finally found the right word for a feeling she'd been mispronouncing for years. "I didn't know," she said when I opened the door. She sat at my kitchen table and let her guard fall in pieces. "He emptied our accounts. He called my clients. He's telling everyone I'm unstable. The police called me about a report he filed. He says you threatened him." She swallowed. "What do I do?" I led her downstairs to the basement. The board, the strings, the receipts. "First," I said, "you tell the truth. Then we move faster than he can." Her phone buzzed on the workbench. A notification flashed. Remote access detected. "He's listening," Tess said over speaker when I called. "He put spyware on her phone months ago." "Good," I said. "Good?" they both asked. "If he's listening," I said, "we can use it." If you've ever chosen truth, knowing it would cost you, let me know you're still here. Comment your city and the time. Share this storytelling for adults if you believe redemption starts with confession. He planned a press conference to bury us. We brought a flood. Savannah woke up to karma. And for once, it was punctual. Saturday morning, Trent tried to hijack the story. He stood on the courthouse steps beside a fresh attorney and played the greatest hits: elder abuse, coercion, a vindictive ex-father-in-law. He held up edited audio of Sienna crying, of me saying we had to move fast, of Michael Rios saying he was done being quiet. The clips were sliced like lunch meat to make us sound like villains. At the same time, Tess and I were 3 blocks away, inside the Savannah Morning Chronicle with the editorial board. We laid everything on the table, Unaltered audio, full recordings, Trent's texts to Whitaker, Brooke Allen on Zoom with eyes like a storm, bank statements, property records with Michael's family home stolen for pennies, the notarized Beckett transcript. The editor, Susan Torres, watched the uncut call where Trent begged Brooke to flee the country with the stolen money. She went pale and said softly, "We almost ran his press release." "Run this instead," I said. By 10 a.m., the Chronicle dropped a bomb. Judge resigns amid evidence tampering allegations. Savannah realtor accused of blackmail, bigamy, and fraud. They used the phrase USA drama. They used revenge story without irony. They used phrases like heartbreaking betrayal and healing and redemption because SEO gods demand sacrifices. Within an hour, Savannah's group chats were on fire, and by noon, the story was national. A meme appeared of Trent in 2 tuxedos with the caption, "Married twice for tax purposes. CPAs hate this one trick." I didn't laugh much. Victor called his own press conference to withdraw from Trent again, this time with cameras. Watching a man run in public is less satisfying than you think. Sunday, the call started. The DA's office wanted statements. The city council clerk asked if I'd attend a Tuesday meeting. Judge Whitaker had been scheduled for a Service to Justice award. Now the council wanted a public reckoning. They invited Michael Rios to speak first. They wanted me to follow. Sunday night, my phone rang again. Unknown number. Trent. He never sounded as calm as he did then, which is how you know the storm had moved into his chest. "Ray," he said, using my name like it belonged to him. "Meet me. Noon tomorrow. Old Tobacco Warehouse on River Street. Alone." Why would I do that? Because I have something you want. The originals, and a video of me making your signatures. Pure, beautiful evidence. You walk away from the DA's office publicly, and it all goes away. "That's blackmail," I said. "Call it what you want," he replied, and hung up. Sienna said it was a trap, then said he'd follow me anyway. Tess had that look she gets when she's planning 3 exits. Michael said, "I'm not letting him hurt you." Monday, the warehouse smelled like old tobacco and shame. Pigeons flapped under high windows where sunlight cut squares on the floor. Trent stood in the center, in yesterday's clothes, eyes wild. "Call off the DA," he said. "Make a statement. Clear me. Release whatever you think you have. It won't change who you are." He ranted then, about me, about Sienna, about how the house should have been his anyway because he deserved it. He said the quiet parts loud and the loud parts louder. My pocket recorder hummed. Savannah PD arrived just as he realized I wasn't blinking. Ben had called them at sunrise. The DA had signed a warrant Sunday night. Trent lunged for the door. He didn't make it. His "you'll regret this" landed on concrete like a bad investment. Tuesday, City Hall overflowed. Every seat taken. Cameras, neighbors, teachers. The guy who runs the coffee shop where I've been buying the same drip for 20 years. Council President Patricia Simmons took the mic with a calm that made the room lean forward. "Mr. Rios," she said first. Michael walked to the podium slow. He set an old photograph of himself with his kids beside the mic and told Savannah what it takes to hold on to your name when people steal it. He held up the Beckett transcript and said, "A courtroom is supposed to be where lies go to die." Then it was my turn. I spoke like I was back in a courtroom. Facts, timelines, receipts, no drama, only the kind you can't avoid. I showed the messages, the bank statements. I showed what happens when love and betrayal share a dinner table for too many years. "Judge Whitaker," President Simmons said finally, "do you dispute any of this?" His attorney stood to object to the air. Simmons waved him off gently. Whitaker's voice, when it came, sounded like someone unwrapping a secret that had gotten too heavy to carry. "No," he said, "it's true." Police officers in uniform walked down the aisle like dignity. "Judge Alan Whitaker," the lead said, "you're under arrest."
Cameras clicked, gasps, a few cheers swallowed by the president's gavel, which sounded like order for the first time that week. Whitaker didn't look at me. He looked at the floor. As he passed Michael, though, he lifted his eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry." "Count to 12, Michael said, and that was the last we let him have. During public comment, Sienna stepped to the mic and used my last name like she wanted to keep it. "I testified against my father," she said, "and I was wrong. I didn't check. I believed a man who told me what I wanted to hear because the truth was going to cost me more. I'm sorry." I didn't smile, but something in my chest loosened for the first time in weeks. If watching karma actually arrive felt like oxygen, let me know you're here. Comment your city and time. Share this deep emotional story if you believe public truth still matters in America. Not every ending is happy, but sometimes fair is enough. In the South, we still bring casseroles when life breaks. I brought something else, a check I didn't deserve. 3 months later, July settled over Savannah like a hot quilt. The headlines cooled. Whitaker awaited trial without the robe he'd grown used to. Trent faced 8 felonies, no plea deals left to hide in. The memes got old. The city returned to coffee and commutes and boil advisories and church potlucks. Sienna got probation for perjury after she walked into the DA's office and told the truth before anyone had to drag her there. Her boutique closed. She got a job at Macy's folding clothes she couldn't afford anymore with a smile that looked like penance. She texted less and said more. Lena flew in for Sunday dinner. We hadn't had both of my girls at the same table in 5 years without a fight. I overcooked the pot roast. They ate it anyway. We passed old photos around the table like communion. Evelyn's laugh came out of an envelope and sat with us a while. In the mail, a letter waited. Heavy paper, clean ink, State of Georgia letterhead. Compensation awarded, 12 years at $140,000 per year. $1.68 million. Michael Rios included a note in his careful handwriting. "Mr. Mercer, without you, I might still be a secret someone hid under an old case number. Enclosed is a check for $200,000. I don't need it. You earned it. Start your next decade without the wait." I stared at the check for 2 days. I held it up to the light. I set it on Evelyn's piano. I moved it to the kitchen table. It followed me like a dog that knows your routine and only wants the part with the walk. On the 3rd day, I wrote my own check for $200,000 and put it in an envelope with a note to Sienna. For a fresh start, pay down debt. Learn what honest growth feels like when it isn't fueled by fear. This isn't a reward. This is a bridge. Don't waste what Michael earned the hard way. Sunday, after pot roast number 2, less overcooked, I slid the envelope across the table. Sienna opened it, then covered her mouth with her hand. "Dad," she whispered, "I don't deserve this." "I know. Neither do I," she cried. Real tears, the kind that come from your ribs. Lena stood and put a hand on her sister's shoulder. I looked down at my plate and saw a little gravy Hoshin decide to make room for a potato. You notice odd things when big ones finally move. We started small. Sunday dinners, no phones, no Trent. Lots of dishwashing we didn't rush. I told my girls about their mother's habit of leaving love notes in the freezer tucked inside the butter dish. I didn't tell them how sometimes I still expect to find one and open a yellow Post-it that says, "Don't forget the light in you was there before you met me." Sienna stayed late one evening and asked, "Do you forgive me?" "Not all the way," I said. "Maybe never fully. But forgiveness is a road, not a light switch. And today, we're walking in the right direction." On the porch, the heat turned the air into a soft weight. Lightning bugs blinked across the yard like someone had lost a box of stars. Somewhere on a nearby street, a kid laughed exactly like everything would be okay. Maybe it would. I still keep the 1997 transcript in a fireproof box. I still believe paper remembers what people try to forget. When I pass the basement, I don't turn on the light unless I need to see. The corkboard is gone. The strings are coiled in a drawer. Ben says he sleeps better. Tess is busier than ever. Curtis Bell sent me a Christmas card with a straight tie. Savannah moves slower than New York, and sometimes faster than the truth. This time we caught up. It wasn't tidy, it wasn't pretty, but it was fair. And if you live long enough in America, you learn that fair can feel holy. I make coffee at dawn most days, black, simple. I listen to the quiet settle like a blanket. Then I step onto the porch and say her name out loud, just her first name, and imagine all the ways she'd be proud of how close we got to right. If this ending felt fair enough, don't disappear. Drop your city and the time in the comments so I know you made it to the porch with me. Share this karma story with someone who needs a reminder. Truth takes the long road, but it still finds home. End of this USA drama revenge story. If you want more emotional storytelling, love and betrayal, healing and redemption, hit follow and share this with a friend who could use a good, honest story told over coffee.